the more that I study the facts regarding the school board referendum, the more that I become more than accepting and trying to get more people to vote yes for it. A couple of questions. Do you want to spend $66 million to repair 100-year-old buildings and still have 100-year-old buildings that are not up to standards? Or would you like to spend less money on just the maintenance of an old building, replace the buildings that long term we're going to have less cost to operate, we're going to have less square foot, we're going to save money for utilities, on and on and on. Okay? $89 million is what the school board is on the referendum for. I think it makes sense. As an example, we're going to get into some of the specifics, but life safety issues are almost $16 million for Baldwin School alone. $15.9 million. Do you know what it costs to tear down Baldwin? We aren't going to tear down the auditorium, the gym, or the cafeteria, but we're going to tear down the classrooms. Okay, to tear them down and rebuild an elementary school for K through 5 at that site is $12 million. Now, I think that's a no-brainer. Spend $12 million, get a new school that get us back to K through 5, or spend almost $16 million on that facility and have a building that still doesn't work. Okay, that's the best example. There's many others that we have. Does anybody here work in the school district at any of the schools? What school?
I work in the high school and at Baldwin.
Okay, so you know some of the Baldwin problems.
Yes.
And the high school is one that we're going to add to it. We are one of 2 communities in the United States that has a junior high setup like we do, where we have 7th, 8th, 9th grade. Now, just because there's only 2 of us in the country that have it doesn't necessarily mean that that's right, or it doesn't mean that it's wrong. But most of us understand that high school is 4 years. Okay? This plan is going to put all 4 years of high school under one roof. We're going to add space to the high school. Todd will get into samples and show you the specific drawings, but we're going to add several of the facilities, a building between the music department and the cafeteria. We're going to add a couple other rooms to the gymnasium, and we're going to add a couple floors to the back of the science building, so we can have all 4 high school classes in that building. Has anyone had the pleasure of driving down Main Street when school's letting out?
Every morning.
Okay. One of the other things that's going to happen by doing this referendum is we're going to have off-street parking for buses and parent pickup. We're no longer going to be fighting the curbs. I don't know how we've been able to get by as long as we have without any child really being hurt, being dropped off at school, or being picked up after school. My wife teaches at Madison. I will go blocks away from that school at around 3 o'clock because it's just, parents fight for possession with their cars. Now, neighborhood schools, they're great, right? When I was a kid, I walked to Madison, I walked to St. Peter's when I went to school. Okay, now parents, even if they live a block away from whatever the school it is, they have to pick them up. That's not to get them home, that's to get them to soccer practice, music practice, something else. Their lives are so busy that it doesn't make any difference if they're a block away or they're a mile away. They don't have time. They've got to hop in a car, a bus, something to get going. Okay? The school board members that put this on the ballot have told us that we can do this, the new school program, without a tax rate increase. Does anybody not believe that?
There's no way.
Okay. Well, there is a way. Okay. And what did I say? I'm going to repeat it again. A tax rate increase. So currently, it's what, 413, I believe, is what the school tax rate is.
Right, out of the 705 total.
Thanks. Okay? We're going to keep that flat. They're going to keep that flat. Okay? We have, to me, some of us call it the perfect storm, some of us call it the perfect opportunity. Now, what am I talking about? What do you get on a CD today? Anybody get 1%? Okay, anybody get a 0.5%? Okay, the cost of money today is as low as we're going to see for the next 20 to 30 years.
How do you know that?
How do I know that? Because the Federal Reserve is already talking about increasing rates. They're already talking about it. And we have an election in less than a month. The rates are going up. Okay, cost of capital cannot stay this low. No government, no federal government is going to be able to keep those rates this low for this long, and it's not going to continue for another 10 years. Okay? So we have the opportunity that we have a low cost of capital available to us now. We have, because the school board has been reducing its debt for, I don't know how many years, 20 years. Okay, they've focused on it the last, 5 years? They've focused on reducing the debt. We have the bonding capacity to be able to build the schools as we need it. Some people say, why would we build 5 new elementary schools? Well, I'd like to reduce 5 principals. I'd like to reduce 5 secretaries, 5 cafeteria groups. We're going to get that with this $89 million program. Why? We basically have 10 elementary schools today, 3 Baldwin, and then count the others. Why do I count 3 for Baldwin? Because there's a principal. There's 3 principals in that building. Okay? We can build 1 school at Monroe. We will build 1 at Baldwin. We're going to keep the cafeteria, the gym, and the auditorium. The round room and all the other classrooms come down. We put up a new school. The other elementary schools, we are just going to close down. Now, the school board hasn't said what they're going to do. The savings that's expected that the school board said would happen is $500,000 per year just on utility costs. Does anyone question, is it less expensive to heat and cool a new building than it is to heat or cool Madison, Dewey, some of the older buildings? I don't think any of us have that question. Okay? That money can go to help pay the life safety bonds, the balance of the money that we have to repair. We still have junior high, we still have the high school, so those are some other schools that we're going to have to still maintain. We can get it done financially. I've met with the chamber, I've met with Gradef, I've met with several other groups like this over the last month. And one of the big questions that has been raised is about the EAV growth. And the EAV is expected, the assumption that the school board has made is that the EAV will increase 2% per year. So even though your tax rate stays the same, the EAV is expected to go up 2%. We believe that that's a conservative estimate based off the last 29 years of experience, given the most recent profile from Great River Economic Development Foundation, given the projection of the median housing price increase that the Illinois Association of Realtors has stated, all of the building permits issued by the city of Quincy since 2009, and the outlook for Quincy by the St. Louis Federal Reserve. So the numbers are there to support at least a 2% EAV growth over the years.
Tell them what EAV stands for.
Equalized assessed value. Yeah, so it's the value of your real estate property. Yeah, thanks. Okay. So we think that is how the school board can actually go through and pay back the bonds over this 20-year time period. Although we're going off for the referendum, not all the buildings are going to be built overnight. Todd will get into the specifics of that plan here shortly, but we will start work on the high school. We will start work on Monroe School, because we can build a new school behind the existing one to start with. Once the high school is built, we can take the 9th graders out of junior high, move them over to the high school. When the new Monroe is open, we can move some of the 5th grade class, 4th and 5th grade class, over to Monroe, or keep them in Monroe. So that frees up some of the people, the students that are in Baldwin. We can then build the other schools. 60% of the student population is west of 24th Street. So we need to have 2 elementary schools west of 24th Street. Broadway is the north-south dividing line. South of Broadway, about half of those students are on that side, and half are on the north side. So there'd be 2 schools built into each of those quadrants. So you have Monroe, the 2 schools west of 24th Street, Baldwin, and then the 5th one will be somewhere in the northeast. That has the most flexibility with options on available land that's available. The school district does not have specific sites selected yet for all those buildings, but if you drive around town, you can see there's quite a bit of acreage that is available where schools need to be close to where the students are going to be. I think before we have questions, if we can get in to have Todd share some of the other information. There's some nice pictures on the schools and a presentation, and then after we're both through, we can address some questions.
Thank you also for having us here this evening. Again, my name is Todd Moore. I'm a mechanical engineer with Architectnics. And before we get into the slideshow, I just want to give you just a brief background how we got to this plan. The 3 local firms, Architectnics, Klinger & Associates, Pepping Stone Bach, put this plan together. I also want you to know we didn't just pull this plan out of thin air. There was about 5.5 months of work that went into getting to this point. And we had our direction was given to us by a steering committee. It was a cross-section of people, 15 to 20 relative parents, staff, business leaders, that gave us direction as architects and engineers and helped us get to this point. And Jeff was on it. Jeff was a good member. A lot of good points brought up by Jeff.
Livened it up.
You sure did. Basically, there was a community survey that went out that some of you may have taken, but the steering committee also got direction from that survey, whether the grade configuration, the size of schools. We also then met with a lot of different staff within the district, with the kitchen staff, the custodians, the maintenance, the transportation, the kindergarten teachers. 17 different groups we met with and found out what works and what doesn't work within our school district. We also took a great deal of time trying to figure out how we could reuse our schools, how we could add on to Madison School, how we could refurbish Washington School, how we could make our schools work. Mike mentioned the $66 million worth of health, life, safety that we have coming up. And then people say, well, how do you know that? How do you know you have $66 million coming up? Well, we spent $52.5 million just in the last 20 years on our schools in health, life, safety. So, looking at all the different components, which I'll show you here in just a minute, what we look at when it comes to health, life, safety, we have a pretty good idea based on roofs, mechanical systems, electrical systems, the walls, the windows, the doors, the interior finishes. We know pretty well where things are going to wear out and when they're going to need to be replaced. So we spent a lot of time. Our schools are 42 to 124 years old. 42 is Quincy High School. That's our newest building. So when you look at a school like Dewey that was built in 1917, we were just out there this morning. One of the news stations wanted to see a little bit more about what we're really talking about. You'd be amazed at the condition of these schools. Now I will tell you that our maintenance does a very good job making our schools work with the condition and the age that these schools are in. They do a phenomenal job. So, grade configuration, we're moving to a K-5. Mike mentioned that. 6th grade would go to junior high, 9th grade goes to high school. We also did a lot of life cycle cost analysis. What does that mean? We took a lot of different options, renovations, additions, building new buildings, and we took all these options and said, what's it going to cost us after 20 years? Well, when you consider the first cost of $89 million and getting rid of $50 million of the $66 million in health, life, safety, we can get rid of $50 million of that. Then you look at the increase in the operation and energy efficiency of these schools. It's really a very attractive option. So, let's talk about, or let's take a look at the slides here. Okay. There we go. Thank you. Okay, this is actually a long presentation. I'm going to shorten it down. I'm going to summarize. This is actually about a 35-minute presentation. I'm going to be brief, and I won't get into detail on the plans. But if you have questions on the plans, I'd be happy to answer them. I won't get into all the different spaces. But this is a typical K-5 school. This is what 4 of the 5 would look like. 1 at Monroe and 3 at sites we don't know. The Baldwin school one looks a little bit different because we're adding on to Baldwin. So as you can see, this plan is pretty symmetrical. We have kindergarten, 1st, 2nd. We have 3rd, 4th, and 5th. There's 4 grade levels at each. So 4 kindergartens, 4 1st, 4 2nd, 4 3rd, and so on. You can see that these large common areas, this is for common teaching, for maybe science fairs, art projects. Just lost the microphone. My eyesight's
Battery. Yeah.
We lost the battery.
Talk louder.
Okay, I'll talk really loud.
What is this one?
That's mine.
Never mind, that mic's mine.
Okay.
They're usually great, but I don't like the fourth one.
Okay. I'll just talk really loud. Okay. You can see the layout of the school. You can see the classrooms. You can see the gymnasiums. I want to talk about the gyms. The governor signed into legislation here recently that any new school built has to have a tornado-safe area. That's an area that will withstand a 350 mile per hour wind. This area in each school will be that. So this will be designed for that. Our schools now are not designed for tornado conditions. We've been very lucky in Quincy. This is the cafeteria, the kitchen area, the music space, and we've covered every special educational need in this layout. So we've got all the speech, the interventionalists, the reading recovery, the reading interventionists. We got occupational and physical therapy. All the different components that we need are in this school. And I will tell you, and you'll see a picture here in just a few minutes of how we handle that now. We actually have taken closets and converted them into the psychologist's office and the sociologist's office. We've converted closets literally into one-on-one intervention. So this is what a typical building looks like.
How many students
600
per building?
per building.
You
Yes.
got that number how?
We have the population of our K-5s right now, and we plan for a little bit of growth. I mean, the Quincy population's been relatively flat. These buildings,
Actually, it's been declining.
well, these classrooms are size. They're 900 square feet, no more than 25 students in a classroom. We have classrooms with 30 in them that are 750 square feet. Very crowded rooms. Anyway,
25 per class, 12 classrooms.
there's 4, 8, 12, 24 in each building, times 5. These buildings are also going to be built for expansion capability. So if our population does grow, which we hope it does, we hope we get businesses moving to Quincy that can help pay taxes. We want our schools to be expanded down the road. We want growth, and these schools can be expanded very easily. The common areas are sized for expansion. We can very easily add classroom space to this layout. That's just an enlarged area of the classroom wing, and I want to talk about one thing real specifically: security. Right now, as you may know, that we have security in our buildings. You come through the front door, you walk through a metal detector, and there's a security guard right there. If an individual gets past that security guard, we have no provisions to handle that. This building is a 4-level security building. What do I mean by that? You come through the front doors, you don't get past the second set of doors until you're screened in. If you're allowed in, you're into this area here, and you can see another set of doors at this location. If an individual gets past the first line of defense, automatically we can lock these second set of doors, and after we clear those areas, we can lock that person into this area. If they get past the second set of doors, we actually lock down the classroom areas, which is the third line of defense. The fourth line is actually the classroom lockdown. So, unfortunately, we have to talk about security in the way we do in the way that our society is, unfortunately. In these classrooms, we have doors between classrooms, so that if an individual gets into the area of the classrooms, students and teachers can move between classrooms so they're not trapped in a particular area. This is just an enlarged area of our cafeteria and kitchen. You can see the music spaces. Our music is handled at Baldwin School in the 4-6 arrangement, so they start with...
Thank you. That'll save my voice. Our music is primarily handled in Baldwin School. Each of these schools now will have the capacity to handle our general music and our instrumental, which is our band and our orchestra. This is what a site plan looks like. This represents a 2-city block area, minimum 7.5 acres. So this is the building sitting on the site plan. Mike talked about Main Street when school lets out. We won't have to worry about that here because we have separation on site. Here's the bus drop-off, and we have parent drop-off on each end. So if you're a parent dropping off a student that's in kindergarten, first or second, they'd be dropped off on this end. 3, 4, and 5 is here, but we're separating the bus from the parent drop-off. On-site staff parking, playground area, it's all contained within the site. There's no more on-street parking. This is just a bird's eye view of the building, and you can see that from overhead we've got a lot of natural light, skylights over each of the wings, high bay areas with a lot of natural light entering the buildings. And this is just a front view. I tell people don't get focused on the materials. This is just a representation at this time. But a lot of masonry materials. Quincy is a very masonry town, so we will continue with that, obviously for longevity. This is Baldwin School. Mike mentioned we're going to tear down the classrooms. This is Baldwin South, West, and North. We're going to keep the dark shaded gray areas, which is the gymnasium, kitchen, cafeteria, and the auditorium. And that was one of the drivers in this was cost. Because we already have a good facility in these large spaces, so why tear them down? And we would not want to tear Blue Devil Gym down anyway. But anyway, this area will be removed, and what does that look like with a new school? The connection here will be at the round room, where the round room will be gone. So we're putting in the classroom areas adjoining the gymnasium, cafeteria, and auditorium. So it fits nicely here at the crest of the hill, and I'll show you what that looks like in a site plan view. Circle Drive here, this is Main Street, this is 30th. They'll extend this road around the front. This will be the main entrance of the building. Bus drop off here, parent drop off here. That's a good question. It's actually below the storm shelter area for Baldwin because we're not building a gymnasium. It's going to be underneath the upper deck where the high bleachers are on both sides. That's a concrete deck.
So you've got that one central point going to the round room.
Yeah, that's some of this detail, Kevin, has not been worked out. We're probably going to have cross connections even over at the wings so we can get into that gymnasium quickly. So here's just another perspective of it. You can see this is the crest of the hill. This is the main entrance, and then you can see the same features with skylights letting a lot of natural light in. These buildings will want a lot of natural light. There's studies that prove that good daylighting, good indoor air quality enhances a student's ability to learn.
Are they sloped?
They're low-sloping roofs, yes. They'll have a slope to them. They're not flat.
They have to be put in snow,
Right,
they'll be covered.
right. That's right. Yes. Well, yes, we're getting the water off the roof, the snow off the roof, and with all the rain we've had, I've heard of even Baldwin School, this part that we're taking down, teachers with garbage cans and bags and just catching the water coming through the roof. Which, by the way, the part we're taking down at Baldwin School, the roof alone is about $800,000 worth of roofing that we're going to avoid that cost by doing this. Last part is Quincy High School. This is Main Street. We're going to infill this area, as Mike talked, between the music building and the cafeteria. This is going to be the 9th grade addition. It's a single story, accommodating about, there's about 18 classrooms in here. We're putting a 2-story building on the science building with laboratories and classrooms, and then we're expanding the physical fitness on the south side of the gymnasium. And we're also going to change the security as you enter Quincy High School. If this is just here, this is what it looks like in floor plan. These are all general purpose classrooms, the new technology department here in the 9th grade area. We're going to expand the cafeteria, obviously, for additional students, and then you can just see the different spaces that we're building on. And this is just a perspective looking down. If you were kind of hovering out over the top of the parking lot, this is the infill of the building. This is the gymnasium expansion, the science building expansion. And stop me if you have any questions on this, because I'm moving pretty quickly, because I know it's getting long here. So if you're going to, how do we handle bus drop-off? Separation from the kids. The kids still park out here along with the staff. The bus will actually cut across the field here, up to here, and you can see the buses that are going to drop off, which primarily 9th graders will be riding the bus, so this is where they'll drop off, right at the 9th grade edition. And so, okay, let's talk about the cost. Mike mentioned $89 million. Here's how it breaks down. The Monroe site, since we already own the land, it's a little bit less money. $14.2 million at Monroe. And I didn't mention this before, but these are 66,000 square foot buildings. With the exception of Baldwin School, it's 52,000. So 14.2 for the school at Monroe. Each of the 3 sites that we do not know where they're going to go yet are $15.6 million apiece. But the Baldwin site is $12 million, and then the improvements at Quincy High School is $16 million for a total of $89 million. So what does that include? It obviously includes new construction and demolition costs. We also are carrying a $7.2 million amount of money in contingency. That's for things we don't know right now, what we might find out when we get into design or construction. We will always carry a contingency fund for the unknown. Now, if everything goes well, the $7.2 million comes off the $89 million, and it's really an $81.8 million job. But we carry that because there's a lot of unknowns at this time. So this includes site acquisition costs for the 3 schools. It includes all the playground equipment, the technology, and all the fixtures and furnishings that go inside the building. So it's all in. It includes the fees, architectural engineering fees, everything.
What are the fees?
7 for which part?
All of them. All the
I can't answer the bond cost fees and stuff like that, Jeff, but I can tell you the architectural and engineering fees are about 7%.
And that would be if the hard costs were $70 million.
It's $5.1 million.
So what do you say the hard costs are going to be then? The 5.1?
It's about $74 million. Yeah. Now, keep in mind, too, that's over about a 4-year period. All those fees are expended over, they're not expended all at once. It's over a 4-year period of design and construction. Okay. Here's how the $66 million that we're projecting to spend, this is how it breaks down. We've got site improvements, we've got roofs, we've got exterior windows, walls, and doors. And I'm talking about if we do nothing, this is where the money is going to go in these old buildings. We have handicap accessibility issues, and you've probably heard or read in the paper, and you'll see a picture here in a minute of how we handle our handicap accessibility with a teacher carrying a child down the steps. That our schools they're filled with barriers. So if you go to Madison School, if you go to Dewey School, if you go to Barry High School, you walk in the building, you either go up the stairs or you go down the stairs. So how does a child, or let's just even take it one step further, how does a grandparent or a parent who has a disability get in the building to see their child or their grandchild maybe at a play or a performance or to see a teacher? They can't. We do not have accessibility in our schools. Now, we have some schools that are relatively flat, but they still have stairs in them. So we're covering that in the life safety. We've got security, we've got asbestos in our schools, and this part here is our interiors, doors, floors, ceilings. This big chunk of the pie is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. That's all your air conditioning and your heating and your lighting and your plumbing systems and so forth. Okay, Mike talked about savings if we do this. We've projected an $11.2 million building operational savings. That does not include, this number does not include any savings associated with reduction of administrators or any kind of staff. This is purely building related. So we're going to reduce our footprint. There's 1,263,000 square feet of school. We're going to reduce that by 158,000 square feet, or about 12.5%. And you say, well, we got the same number of students, got the same number of teachers teaching the students. How do we reduce? How do we take 158,000 square feet out of our schools? Efficiency. Our buildings that we're designing here are very efficient. There's no wasted space. If you go to Baldwin School, really wide corridors, lockers sticking out in the hallways, that's wasted space. We're also going, we're going from 8 existing facilities, so we have 7 grade schools and we have Baldwin School. We're going down to 5 new K-5 buildings, so we're going to reduce gyms, kitchens, cafeterias. That's how we get the reduction in square footage. So, with that also, new buildings. Mike said, okay, is a new building more efficient than an old building? You bet. And that's how we're going to get reduced costs related to energy. We don't have all the maintenance-related items, just the day-to-day maintenance items that our maintenance staff does a very good job going out and repairing things on old parts of the building. So that's how we're getting this savings. So $560,000 a year, or $11.2 million over 20 years. Now, this is the last slide here, and then we'll just show you some quick pictures of some problems.
Did you look at multi-story?
We talked about it, and that still could be a possibility, John, and it depends on the potential, actually the 3 sites that we don't know yet. If it's a sloping site, this plan will be a 2-story classroom building with obviously the gymnasium, the larger areas on the single story. We're going to sit.
The
Yeah.
concept is, all these people have a new health department building, good-sized building.
Right.
5.5 million, including land.
Mm-hmm. Right. Part of one of the drivers was from the steering committee was to keep everything on one level, primarily due to the barriers and ADA issues. Even though if we had a multi-story, we'd have an elevator and stair towers and so forth. Okay, construction schedule. Mike talked about this, and I'll just kind of go over it briefly here. Quincy High School and Monroe School would be concurrent. Then we'd stagger the 3 new buildings, and the idea is we want to keep as much of this $89 million here in Quincy. We've got a great labor force, we've got good general contractors, mechanical contractors, electrical contractors. If we did this at one time, we would be getting St. Louis contractors and contractors from everywhere. Now, this doesn't guarantee all local participation because we do have to bid these publicly. But there's a very good chance that if we stagger these, we could have subcontractors and general contractors actually staggering their work. So they're not all working on everything at one time. $89 million in this community will turn over many times. That money spent here will turn over many times, which will be a tremendous boost. So the 3 buildings, the 3 new buildings here, and then finally, Baldwin is the last site. And by that time, all the kids would pretty much be out of the schools anyway because they'd already be in their new schools. We would transition the remaining students here while this is under construction to maybe a Madison school for 1 year until this is done. The students would then move to their new K-5 building at the Baldwin site. Yes?
Are we under prevailing wage?
Yes, we are. And I know. That's it. Yeah. Unfortunately, we're under prevailing wage. I'll just say it like that. So, we can't do anything about it, obviously.
Have you put junior high in the expenses?
Junior high is relatively in good shape. By taking the 9th graders out and putting the 6th graders in, there's not a lot of work. However, we're carrying about $6 million in future health life safety work that things will need to be done at junior high school. There's some doors and it's in the cost. Well, it's not in the $89 million, but it's in future health life safety work. If you remember, I said there's $66 million if we do nothing. If we do this, we're going to avoid 50, but there's still $16 million in the health life safety fund to do that, and junior high falls in that category. And senior high, yes, that's correct. Yes, there is. Yes. Junior high is a unique building, as you know. It's not like all other buildings. It was built for time. I mean, that's been there for 80 years. It'll probably be here for another 80 years. It's just the materials that were used at that time, terrazzo floors. It's just a phenomenal building.